Yeah, man. Jose, thank you for coming on here today.
Thanks for having me on.
For sure. So, yeah, getting this started and getting right into it, would you be able to give us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and anything else that you want to give us? And yeah, we can work from there.
Of course. So every time it's really funny. I just posted about this on threads. Like my threads have been popping off recently, but I posted this thread on this type of thing. It's like, I hate when people ask me, what do you do? Because the thread was something like, my heart wants to say I'm a multidimensional being and entrepreneur that gives people the space to unlock their own truths, to be able to articulate that and communicate that to the world so that they can have more freedom in their life. But I'm forced to say life coach and speaker because 98% of people just won't get it. So it's like, that's
It's a lot simpler that way.
yeah. Well, yeah, just if I explain all the front end stuff, most people won't get it, but I'm not speaking to those people anyways, right? I'm speaking to the
Hmm.
2% of people who have this deeper soul calling, conscious beings that want to bring their healing wisdom to the world, but just haven't figured out a way to either do it in business and be able to charge a high price point for their absolutely invaluable service and to be able to communicate that in a way that makes sense to people. So, that's what I do for business. Have a lot of clients. I've had crazy client results. I've had people go from like 0 to 100K in 2 months, 0 to 100K in
Wow.
4 months. One of my clients last year did 72K first month working with me. A lot of different results in between as well. Like one of the guys that did 100K in 4 months, it's really interesting. The long term results, like I always find that to be the most enjoyable and rewarding aspect. It's not like when they're working with me, how crazy the results are, but it's even long term. Like one of the guys, he's actually a mentor of mine now. It's really interesting. Like I was his first like big investment in mentorship, and he's just taken it so far with like content creation that he's even helping me now, which is really really interesting. I love that. It's like he's gotten so good that even I look to him as leadership and guidance in some of the content stuff. But
That's
he's
cool.
he just went on Pierce Morgan live, right? Like,
Wow.
so it's like, and he's commenting on all these political things and coming at it from a very heart centered and soul aligned perspective, which is really cool. He's getting a ton of attention. Like Elon Musk was retweeting him on Twitter. So it's like that's the kind of thing that I bring out in people, to be able to like align with their voice, align with their vision, but also not be ignorant to the business side and the pragmatism that is involved with like sharing your genius. And then outside of that, I have a bunch of other projects as well, other businesses. And yeah, man, just bringing some truth, bringing some light, some love, and doing it in a way that feels good.
Mm. Bringing that good energy.
Always.
Hmm. That's awesome. So, how do you go about doing that? Do you just see something in others that they don't see in themselves? Like, do you have a knack of just knowing somebody's gift and bringing it out in them?
Yeah, it's sort of like a double edged sword in a way, in that I see more in people than they see in themselves. So it works really well when I'm working with my clients because a lot of times they don't even see their power. Like I think the vast majority of conscious beings, because they are so rooted in truth and honesty, that they almost don't even give themselves the permission to be an authority, right? Like a
Uh-huh.
lot of times that's what I'm really doing for people, is giving them the permission that they needed to give themselves the entire time, but just never found the faculties to do that. It's like imposter syndrome 101. Like a lot of the most like magical people that I know have massive imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And it's a double-edged sword in the sense that sometimes like if you engage with the wrong people and you give them a bit more love and patience than they actually deserve, then you end up in like really weird relationships. And so over time you learn discernment to like, push the wrong people away, only let in the right people. But yeah, I mean that's really what it is, right? I see more in people than they see in themselves. And when people start to wake up to their own truth and their own power and embody that, not just like in an Instagram post, but like in every single moment of your life, it's really interesting how the universe starts to reflect that. Because as we all know, it's like you are just one fragment of consciousness, and your perception of the world and your energetic vibration, your connection to self, is determining the physical reality that you experience. And so it's one thing to know that in theory or in principle, but it's another thing to like actually embody that and apply that and live through that. So I help people to do that essentially.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Empowerment.
of
That's cool.
course, all day.
So, Yeah, this all is in the spiritual realm, though, right? Consciousness, self realization, it's all within that and bringing empowerment in that way.
Yeah, I'm very practical with things as well. Like, as spiritual as anybody might be, you definitely need structures and frameworks and systems
Mm-hmm.
and all those different things to either run a business or to, like, for example, like, it doesn't matter how much you meditate, you're not going to get big muscles and six pack abs, you know? Like, you
Yeah.
actually have to exhibit some kind of discipline. And also, the strategy doesn't matter. It's very dichotomous, you know? The
Mm-hmm.
strategy never mattered. Like, as a matter of fact, the times in even my entrepreneurial journey that were the most difficult were the times where I was trying to apply or model a strategy based off of what someone else said. And it always made things more difficult when, in the moments where things are difficult and I just relax and I tune into myself and I ground into my own connection and I listen to my divine intuition, it's like that ease and flow and effortlessness that I'm always looking for starts to actually be realized, you know? So it's like, it's a bit of a dichotomous thing. And it 100% starts at that spiritual consciousness perspective, right? Like, to really understand that your reality, like the physical world that you observe, is a construct of your energetic and your emotional mental connection to self. It's like, if you look at one of my favorite books, if anybody's watching this, read the book The Kabbalion by the Three Initiates. One of the best books, hands down, the Seven Hermetic Principles. And I'll give you a brief summary of it. It's basically, there's three layers, there's three planes of existence: the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane. Now, everyone looks at their physical reality as evidence of their reality. For example, people will look at this is what I see in a lot, especially conscious people. Oh, I don't have a lot of money. That means I don't have a lot of opportunity. I'm limited. How do I figure this out? Right. I've been there a million times, you know, like when you're broke and when you don't have a lot going for you, it's very hard to think and feel abundantly because all you see around you is like limitation. You're in the same environment that isn't that great. You have the same friends that aren't on the same path, and you just don't really know how to like get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in those moments, if you just reconnect to like your spiritual connection and you change your perception of your reality, well, you'll start to realize that this physical reality is the byproduct of that spiritual and energetic connection. And the more you honor that energetic connection, even in the worst circumstances, you can find opportunities for more. This is where like synchronicity comes in. And synchronicity is it's a term coined by Carl Jung, you know, the great psychologist. He used that term to describe chance encounters that were divine in nature almost. Like, this is why strategy is oftentimes can be very limiting to conscious beings because they get so in their head about like needing to do step one, step two, step three, step four, when in truth, conscious beings have an ability to use synchronicity and experience synchronicity more often than like the average person. Because it is not possible. Something like a principle that I always teach my clients is that you're always one degree of separation from everything that you desire, right? Is it not possible that you can walk down the street and you bump into just some random person and turns out they were like a really successful entrepreneur and they liked you and they're like, man, I want to invest in you and your businesses. Boom, that takes your business to the next level. Is it not possible that you go to a party, an event, something like that, that your friends forced you to go? They like coerced you into going, but you're more of an introvert, so you don't like going to parties and stuff. And then you end up going, you're like, whatever, I'll go. And you meet the love of your life. Like, your life can change like that. And the more you open your awareness to that and you stop judging your physical reality,
Mm-hmm.
that's the moment that you actually start to move forward in your life. Because again, what most people do is they look at their limited circumstance right now and take that as evidence of they're not enough. They're
Yeah.
not good enough. They're not smart enough. They didn't work hard enough. Like the myriad of limiting core beliefs that people have. When if you just eliminated those, it's like your physical reality will start to mirror that spiritual mastery that you cultivate.
Mm. Well said, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks.
The all is mine.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Mind and spirit, right? Heart and mind.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, what I got from that is the essence is connecting with the greater self. We could say the greater spirit, the greater consciousness, greater awareness, many different ways to say it. And then from that connection is a different way of seeing ourself in the world. It's like a different vantage point. It's a complete 180. And then from that alternate seeing is an alternate wavelength of creation. And that changes everything. is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, you said 180. That's
Mm-hmm.
not by accident. That is truth. 180. Most people have their compass for life backwards, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are we taught? Like, this is all social programming, societal programming. What are we taught? Go to school, sit down, follow orders, don't talk out of turn, make sure you get good
Mm-hmm.
grades. And when you get good
Obey.
grades, you can go to university. Make sure you get good grades in university so that way when you graduate, you can beg someone for a job or they pay you 45K a year if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
And if you stay a good boy and you stay in that corporate career and you work up the ladder, maybe you can make six figures at some point. And then
Yeah.
maybe when you're 65, you can retire and have a sliver of freedom. And it's like the entire system is backwards, right?
Yep.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that system, the truth is that system worked 30, 40 years ago, right? Like I just recorded a video on this and I added this line in there. I'm like, your grandma bought her house for what you pay in 2 or 3 months of rent. And then she sold it this year for 700K. Like where you at? Are you in the US?
Yeah, outside Boston.
You're outside Boston. Oh, exactly. Yeah, I'm in Florida and I'm in South Florida. Real estate is crazy here. Same thing with the Northeast. Your
Mm-hmm.
grandma went and sold that 30-year-old house for 700K, and then boomers want to sit and tell people in our generation, "Oh, you guys are irresponsible. You need to stop buying coffee at Starbucks and just make it at your house." Like, no, like it's a totally different system. Back in, the 80s and 70s and whatnot, making 30, 40, 50K a year was really, really good according to like the cost of living and wages at the time. Like you had so much to do with that. Nowadays it's like if you're making 30, 40K a year, it's like you are so limited. You're extremely limited, especially as a conscious being. And I talk about like consciousness and even money a lot because a lot of times spiritual people have almost like a love-hate relationship with money where it's like, no, 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 like I don't care about money. It's like, no, no, no. Think about like how much if you had more money, like, and you don't even need to have like $1 billion or anything like that. Like if you just had enough resources to live your life abundantly, where you didn't worry about the rent or the mortgage, you can pay for the kids, support the wife, how much more can you actually impact people's lives? Like you can
Mm-hmm.
scale your healing wisdom. You can share that more abundantly and more creatively when you have no worries about money in the first place. And so that's just one aspect of how like people's compasses for life are completely backwards. Same thing happens with relationships. Well, let's just stay in this marriage for 40, 50 years, 30 years or whatever just because like we need to make sure that the kids are okay. Meanwhile, it's like they married just the first person that was right next to them and never actually did any kind of like soul searching or any evaluation of what do they actually want out of a partner,
Mm-hmm.
so and there's other things, health and fitness and processed foods. I'm somewhere between like a conspiracy theorist and an entrepreneur, so I like to call it alternative hypotheses, if you will.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Powerful stuff. Yeah. So where does one start upon this journey? Do you have some practices or modalities to get in touch in that way?
No.
Okay.
Yes and no. I always been very averse to like sharing modalities or anything like that because one of the things I do see in kind of like the downside to doing like even coaching and doing it online and all these different things is like people will pigeonhole their ideas and their spiritual growth and their spiritual cultivation into like one specific modality, like let's say manifestation, law of attraction stuff. It's like, oh, if you just like think your way into success and you visualize it, then you'll get what you want. But if you don't get what you want, it's because you visualized it wrong or you didn't hold the vision long enough, and that's what you did it wrong. You did the technique wrong. And so I try to stay away from a lot of techniques and whatnot because, in truth, like I said before, the strategy never really matters. Same thing when it comes to spirituality. The strategy doesn't really matter. It's about the person applying the strategy. And so, because one of the things like in the manifestation law of attraction community, it's very toxic because they like poke you and prod you with all these insecurities of desires that you want, and then tell you that you're not high vibrational enough. That's why you haven't gotten it. And it's like they forget to tell you that, oh yeah, by the way, if your life isn't in alignment with the thing that you want, it's going to crumble. It's going to crash hard and it's going to feel crazy. It's going to feel super chaotic. They don't tell people that. Why? Because it's marketing. What do people buy? people buy into marketing that makes it sound and feel good and feel amazing. It's really not. Like, as a matter of fact, I'd probably be 100 times richer if I was like that same kind of grifter energy. It's like, I think it's a grift, to be quite honest, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're telling people part of the equation on like how cool it is and oh my gosh, it's amazing, but you're not also transparent about, yo, you're gonna feel some shit for some time until like you actually adjust to this new reality. Um, I'm just honest, I don't like to sugarcoat things for people.
Mm, yeah. That's important. What I see in you is you're bridging the gap between realism, pragmatism, but also empowerment and spirituality. And I think that's very much
Absolutely.
needed,
Yep. Yep.
especially for Westerners. We're still living in the world where we need money, as you said, and money is just energy. And if you know how to utilize your energy, you know how to utilize the energy of money. But yeah, I think your strength, it seems to be, well, letting people know how they can utilize their strengths, but also just knowing that in yourself. It's like being pragmatic while you're living in the world, living in the Western world, but also staying seated in that higher consciousness. And that is truly how I see the sage in the 21st century in the Western world, in the United States of America, is having these higher truths, but not being passive, not being the monk on the mountain. It's taking the mindset of the monk on the mountain into the world. So ultimately, you create a better life for yourself, a better world, and you just be happier altogether. So yeah, man, I feel that. And touching upon your point of like money and how spiritual people shoot away, I understand why. It's kind of like classically in all the text to shoot away in one way or the other. As Jesus says, it's tough for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Um, I get that, and I get where it comes from, but I think it's like shooing away the love of money, right? The love of money is the root of all evil, is what the saying is. I think what we're getting at here in this whole conversation is looking at your entire life, this entire world differently. Nothing changes, but everything changes in how you look at it. So, money is a huge one. If you can look at it differently, then yeah, you can do so much with it. You can change the world, especially as a conscious being. You can change the world. You can open up charities. You can build wells in Africa. You can build a yoga studio. You can build whatever you want. It's all about how we use it, how we see it, and then from that seeing how it's utilized. So yeah, powerful stuff, man, and I appreciate that. That's a different kind of wavelength, a different kind of essence that you are bringing to the world. So
Yeah.
kudos to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what you said is like absolutely on point, right? Like you got to go watch this. I just recorded it actually before, we hit the play button on this. But in that video, I'm talking about three worries that people suffer from that are like literally sabotaging their reality of freedom. And one of the big ones is money. And money is so important because it's tied to your sense of safety, to your sense of worth, to your actual embodiment of freedom to some degree, right? Like you said, money is not people misquote the Bible all the
Yeah.
time, right? It's like it's not that money is the root of all evil, it's the love of money is the root of all evil. When
Mm-hmm.
you pedestalize money and all you care about is money, that is what evil is. And in this
Yeah.
in this video, I'm also adding like this one. I've spoken on stage many different times, and one of the times I spoke on stage was an audience of like 500 people, and I was making this point right here about how everyone mindset, we're all programmed with like many of us, unless you're born into a rich family where like wealth and abundance was just always there, so it's just normal to you. If you were more like me, and I'm assuming yourself as well, like if you come from a background that's more like middle class or even lower income, I come from a low income background, you're ingrained with all of these incantations of scarcity. It's
Yeah.
like a magical spell that people put. It's like, and
Yeah.
literally what I did in the audience, I was like, let me test you guys, right? Finish the sentence. Money doesn't grow on, everyone in the audience goes, trees. A penny saved is a penny earned. It's easier for a rich man to get, it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. I'm like, look, yeah, you guys were programmed with it. It's like, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? People grow. And the thing is, 2% of people actually challenge this, right? That's the 2% of people that I speak to, the conscious beings that see more, that don't look at money as this evil, crazy thing and it's complicated. No, it's just numbers on a screen. Literally, it's only 10% of money in circulation in the world is physical cash anymore. It's all numbers on a screen. And like we stress out our entire lives about it. And understanding this and even embodying this perspective, you'll realize number one, money isn't all that scary. It's actually a tremendous tool, especially for conscious beings.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, you'll start to think in more abundant and resourceful ways because that's really all business is. It's like business, and even money itself is an exchange of energy. In fact, some of the most spiritual and magical people that I know are very wealthy, like very, very wealthy. Like some of the people that did energetic work on me are the same ones that did energetic work on Tony Robbins like 10, 15 years ago. Like I know some of the like the best healers in the world, and they have tons of money, and they're opening up schools of wellness. They're opening up all types of outlets to be able to give more of their value and give more of their service. And even as an entrepreneur, it's like you don't need to be a coach or anything like that. It's like a lot of my clients don't even run coaching programs or are, like content creators and whatnot. Some of them are musicians, some of them are engineers, some of them are stock market and options traders and crypto traders. Some of them are tech consultants and they do high ticket sales and stuff like that. But it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at in your life. It's like you can always figure out a way to be more resourceful to provide more value to the world, which will give you more money. And when you do that in a soul aligned way, that's where it feels effortless because what we're trained on is trading time for money, trading your soul for money. But as it says in the Bible, what good is it to gain the world but lose your soul?
Mm,
Right? So it's like
mm,
having a lot of money and being spiritually in connection, they're not mutually exclusive. They actually go hand in hand. They're in a tandem. And here, final point on this, right? It's like as a multidimensional being, right? As a conscious being who embodies truth and sovereignty and is connected to God and connected to source, you have to acknowledge that you still live in the third dimension, as 4D, 5D, 6D as you might be, whatever D, however many Ds you want, right? However many Ds you guys want inside of you, right? you still have to you still have to acknowledge that you're in the third dimension. And unfortunately, money is still directly tied to our quality of life in the third dimension. So as a multidimensional being, the most grounded individuals are the ones that recognize that and they learn how to master that and put money in its place as the tool that it was meant to be. It wasn't meant to master you, you were meant to master it. And so I think the more people realize that, it's like eventually we'll evolve to, more of like a spiritual currency. Like I wrote an ebook called Spiritual Currency last year, and one of the predictions I'm making is that it's not going to happen anytime soon, but maybe hopefully in the next like 30 to 50 years or so, like certainly in my lifetime, I hope money will be less of like the dominant force of power in the world. And that power is in like you can press the nuclear bomb and blow up the other country kind of thing, but more so like power as leadership, as influence. That eventually it's like because AI is going to displace everybody's jobs, and eventually the government's going to have to step in and do universal basic income to basically subsidize people because it's like once AI takes your job, and it's coming for everybody's job, it'll take some time, but it's coming for everybody's job.
yeah.
Then most people are going to be there's going to be like two different subset of people. There's going to be the subset of the population that descends into more disconnection, more unconsciousness. Those are the people that you'll see. If you ever seen the movie Wally, you ever seen the movie Wally before?
No. Mm-mm. I know it though.
Have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
No. Sorry.
Okay, okay. These are like entertaining types of movies, but like there's in Wally and Idiocracy, it's like they're both future movies. Wally's like a Disney movie. In Wally, all of the humans basically left Earth because it was just so toxic and there was no more plants. All of the humans that are on the ship that eventually comes back to Earth, they're sitting in chairs with a screen in front of them, like entertaining them. They're all fat. They don't move their bodies, right? So that'll be like one subset of the population. The other subset of the population will be people like us that are embodying spiritual connection, that are staying connected to God. And what you'll see, I heard Jeff Bezos on a podcast talk about this with Lex Friedman. It's like the only podcast he's ever done. And he was telling Lex, it's like he's looking forward to a point in humanity where there's 1,000 Mozarts, there's 1,000 Gary Haskins, there's 1,000 Jose Moralejos, there's 1,000 Jesus Christ, there's 1,000 Isaac Newtons, right? And that'll be like that's what my whole like prediction inside of spiritual currency is. It's like the people that are connected to their truths, their art, their genius, their creative genius within, they'll be the ones leading humanity forward at that point.
Yeah. I feel that.
No,
Mm-hmm. And that's where we're
it's wild to
moving.
think about, you know?
It really is. We're moving into an alien world of complete abundance. that scarcity mindset that we were conditioned into is going to be a thing of the past. I mean, you can make it a thing of the past now through your consciousness, but like on the physical realm, there's not going to be any scarcity with the advent of AI. So, yeah, you better get used to that right now before it actually hits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Great stuff, man. Yeah. Hmm. I had a question, but I don't even remember what it was now.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt me because I go on long-winded rants. So
No, that was great. That was great. I might have to clip that one. Geez. I don't even know where to go from here. Um, AI is going to change everything. That's for sure. And I mean, I think this mindset that we're speaking of now is going to have to be, it's going to be a necessity because what else are people going to do with their life? So everybody places their value of their life on what they can provide one way or the other. It's usually their job. And if you don't have a job anymore, you're going to have to, I think, especially as a masculine uh, essence, you're going to have to find some way to provide. But if there's no way to provide, or very, very few ways of providing, there's going to be like a mental health crisis coming from AI and the idolization of money, because that's right now what we do. Money is pretty much our God. It's a huge false idol, false love of money. But when that disappears, what are we going to bow down to? I don't know. And that's why I think this whole mindset is a necessity, because it's like there's going to be an incongruence in our being and how we see ourselves in the world. And just like there's so much to even get into that I can't even put into words right now. But it's just going to throw a loop into how we see ourselves altogether. But I think you're only immune to it if you have this higher seeing of yourself, this higher awareness of yourself. If not, then there's going to be a lot of suffering, you know?
yeah, yeah, you're stumbling upon one of the thoughts that I have as well, and I think it's also just it's a very truthful and even just clear observation. It's like, yeah, what's going to happen? Like there's going to be a big subset of people that are so, and this is what we're talking about. Like the people that don't get on the AI train right now. It's like you don't need to be like an AI expert, but at least like understand the technology because it's like think about
Mm-hmm.
it's like phones, right? When phones came out, do you play Pokemon by the way?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There you go, got Umbreon.
Nice.
But the people that don't get like an understanding of AI, it's like it's coming whether you like it or not. Like it's
Yeah.
happening. It's happening right now. And what you said about people attaching their purpose and their purposefulness to life of creation is their job, right? But the
Yeah.
thing is, as soon as AI takes that job, like all the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers, all of these like mainstream things that are typically high paying and demand a lot of your time and attention, AI does it with zero inaccuracy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, that's when the real soul searching is going to happen. And I think you are right. I
Yeah.
think there's going to be like a big mental health crisis. But the thing even about that, it's like I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson. I pay attention to a lot of like the biggest thinkers. Like I spend a lot of time like dissecting people's thoughts and ideas and thought leaders of like our current time. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is predicting that at some point in the next like 20, 30 years or so, I forget the time frame he said, but some point soon, the pharma drugs for like antidepressants and SSRIs, like that people take for anxiety and depression and mental health issues, eventually they'll get so good that they pair bond with your DNA, or they are specifically can design it for your DNA so that there's zero side effects. So it's like people will be
Mm-hmm.
able to numb themselves out and kind of like not experience the pain of not having a purpose. And
Ooh.
that's really interesting. That's a really interesting thought as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Those people that like are not going to have a purpose, it's like you need to find a purpose outside of your job and your work. Because
Yeah.
if your job, like yeah, let's say you're an engineer, you're a electrical engineer. If that's your purpose right now, and that's all you do every single, that's all you think about. It's like at some point that's going to be gone. So you have to have a deeper purpose, a bigger purpose
Mm-hmm.
for your reality. If you're interested in becoming more of a conscious being who is a leader of humanity going forward. If you don't
Mm.
care, it's like whatever, just keep doing what you're doing now. No one has to do this, right? Spirituality is not a
That's the
requirement.
beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's if you want it.
Yep.
Yeah, that actually reminds me what I was going to ask you. Do you find that when you help people get in touch with themselves, that they find their purpose and their purpose is aligned with, it may be hard to generalize. Let's preface that, but let's try. It's aligned with like a greater good. Like there's something they're sort of giving back in their work, sort of selfless.
Yeah. Yeah. I think every person that gets into like any kind of spirituality, self help, and all that, it's like I think the first thing you think about is like, man, I need to bring this to other people. You know, that's why
Yeah.
like a good subset of my clients do tend to end up either already are or end up doing running some kind of like transformation facilitation program or writing books or courses or something like that. I think it's a natural inclination that like once you start to ascend, you start to realize that, oh yeah, that's right. Like the greatest reward for this is also bringing other people onto the path as well. I mean, like Jesus
Mm,
Christ did the same thing. He
mm-hmm.
he encountered God and he realized he was the son of God. And what did he do? He preached the gospel, right? And we still talk about him to this day. So it's like, yeah, I think every person that like becomes more conscious has at some point comes across the intention of uplifting other people in some form, whether it's like direct transfer of energy and facilitation, or in their music, or in their writing, or in their art, like actual paintings and whatnot. It's like whatever you bring your creative genius to, it's like you're making other people's lives easier. You're giving other people the space to also encounter God through your creations. So it doesn't have to be like a coaching thing. It could literally be
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. That's the thing is there's many different ways to God. And it's actually not as easy as just saying it, actually. Sometimes it does occur in a good song or a good poem, well written words, or maybe just in your presence when you're hanging out with somebody. But yeah, there's many different paths to God, and I think inevitably, once you feel that God consciousness within, you feel it in others as well. And it's like, well, I can't just keep this to myself. I sort of have to bring everybody else along in some sort of way. I kind of have to give back. There's this like slight obligation. I don't know if obligation is the right word because it's, I mean, it's like I feel like I have to, but at the same time, I don't. Yeah, I can't think of a better word, but I'll just say obligation. There's an obligation to give back in that consciousness because there's no greater purpose, I find. Like, I find realizing God, and I was a huge atheist before, realizing God is like the greatest miracle and gift that you could have bestowed upon you. So, um, it's like, how can I not? How can I not at least try while I'm here in this body? You know, that's just me. But do you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obligation definitely isn't the right word. It's more like inspiration.
Yeah,
Like the
that's good. I like
inspiration.
that.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you feel the effect of what being a more conscious human has done for your life. And then you look at like your loved ones and you just see
Mm-hmm.
how they're riddled with anxiety and depression and
Yeah.
frustration and guilt and shame. Guilt and shame, if there is a devil and it's
Mm.
in the form of human emotions, it's guilt and shame,
Yeah.
right? And shame is the painful humiliation of distress or anguish from one's past actions, and guilt is it's a similar sense, right? You feel guilty for doing X, Y, and Z, and people are riddled with this. And again, it kind of ties back into like the conversation we had earlier about looking at your physical reality. So people like they'll look at maybe relationships that went sideways. They'll look at the fact that they didn't study hard enough in school, or they didn't live up to a certain societal expectation. And so now they're, many years along the path and they're just riddled with all this guilt and shame. And then you're here dancing in the field, grounding, spending time in the sun, eating good. You're feeling good. You feel connected. You feel creatively inspired, and you're sharing that with the world. And especially when you actually start like doing it well to the point where the world recognizes your genius, it's like you naturally feel the calling, right? Inspiration,
Yeah.
the calling to like bring them along the path as well. And that's sort of like the hard part because there's oftentimes like when I talk to people that are in that process of like uncovering the novelty of like, oh, I want to bring other people along, they also run into this like friction point of like you can bring a horse to water but you can't make them drink.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can't tell you how many times I get to, I hear from people like, man, I want to do what you do, but like my brother does X and my sister does Y, and my mom and dad are just so like disconnected. They're like psyoped by the system, and
Yeah.
they voted Kamala and all that stuff, right? It's like, and the more that they step into that frame of like, I need to like influence this person right now in order to like for them to experience what I'm experiencing now, it's almost like they get rejected. There's like
Yep.
tremendous resistance. There's like a definite friction point there, because they're almost like trying to force a square peg into a round hole. So oftentimes, like when I tell people, it's like you don't necessarily want to help just anybody. You want to help the people that want to be helped. And so
Hmm.
the best way to influence even like your loved ones, your friends, your family is not to like berate them and like, I'm doing so much better. Look how conscious I am. You need to be more conscious too. No, no, no. You're gonna it's literally gonna be like a repul. They're gonna be repulsed by that. What you
Yeah.
do is you live through your truths. You embody them. And if you find yourself in conversation, chat with them. Talk about your challenges. Be honest and upfront, even about some of the challenges that you experience. I think one of the biggest things that people love in me, as a reflection of like the comments and things that I get from people, is just like my honesty. It's like, bro, I'm here. I'm drinking 300 milligrams of Bang caffeine. I'm, taking Zins, right? It's like, spirituality has nothing to do with like crystals and being perfect. Like, no, it's not. It's not all. As a matter of fact, it's like being the most spiritual and most conscious means that you can embrace the most amount of messiness and still have truth and clarity and precision in God.
Exactly.
And my whole comment of like the Kamala stuff, right? It's like I it's weird. What I've noticed and observed is like a lot of the people that voted for Kamala were like not voting for Kamala; they were voting against Trump. That was really my main comment with that type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily pro. I definitely like Trump as an entrepreneur. I'm not necessarily like super pro Trump or whatever. I'm definitely not with Kamala. Kamala is just the same thing as like the traditional establishment of like a fake politician who's it's just fake. It's fake.
Yeah. That's a psyop.
Yeah.
That's the definition of a psyop.
Absolutely.
Uh,
You know what's funny? Sorry to, but you know
yeah.
what
Go ahead.
baffles me is how 2020 happened, the whole COVID pandemic happened, and people are still defending the government. It's
Yeah.
insane. It like
Hmm.
I don't understand
Yeah. If you want to talk about the Matrix, that's it, man. We're in the Matrix
it, bro.
for sure. Exactly. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. But yeah, I'll
Yeah.
comment on that. We went through 2020, and I feel like that was a huge opportunity for all of us to get out of the Matrix, to take the red pill. I know it sort of was for me. I was already on this wavelength a little bit, but then what happened in 2020 was just a huge confirmation of, oh, yeah, we're definitely in the Matrix 100%. And now we're just back to business as usual, it seems. Some people got the message for sure. I've talked to a lot of people that said 2020 led to something, but not the majority. Definitely not the majority.
Especially not in Boston, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. So, yeah. To me, it's like, what's it gonna take? If that wasn't it, I think because it wasn't real suffering. It was like it was a psyop of suffering. It was all created. Like if we really legitimately went through a real pandemic where like 1 in 2 people died, 1 in 3 people died, and it was real sickness. You got sick, almost died. Then I think that would have woke people up. But it was just all fake. The whole thing was fake. So it didn't really like shake people up as much because it didn't really have any substance. I don't know. I don't want to go too much into it. The whole thing was fake. And if you didn't see
I'll go
through it,
into it. Yeah, I'll go
go
into it.
ahead.
Yeah, people definitely suffered, of course. Um, and I get what you're saying. They didn't suffer to the extent that they reject and actually like realize the government doesn't give a shit about you. People think
Mm-hmm.
the government cares about them. Absolutely not. That's why, by the way, that's why I think more and more people are starting to wake up to this. Thank God, right? Like common sense is starting to like arise again a little bit, like, and Trump winning the election is sort of a reflection of that, right? Because I was actually convinced, like for me, honestly, like I was surprised that Trump won. I was like, people are
Mm-hmm.
psyop. There's no hope. Like I'm not even gonna vote, bro. Like Trump is not gonna win this one. And he actually won in Atlanta. I'm like, no, no way. There's actually some kind of hope, right? I don't think he's a perfect politician. I think he does certain things dumb. I think he's a Zionist, right? Like he's super pro Israel. I think he's bought by them, but he's definitely more of the drain the swamp type of person that people want now. Like people want, but But then there's still like such a massive subset of people that went through the entire COVID experience and were like, yep, let me get the jab. In 2025, people are still getting the jab. Like, are you? They've
Yeah,
literally
it's like,
come
come
out
on,
multiple
man.
times. Even Tony Fauci came out multiple times. Like, yeah, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, and they maligned people hard for being anti-vax. I never got the vaccination, and I knew from the second. That this shit happened, I was like, this is bullshit. This is fake. This is a scam,
Yeah.
and a lot of my friends, I'm in Florida, so kind of maybe I'm in a bit of an echo chamber, but a lot of my friends that did get the vaccination regret it, horribly regret it. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, and there's actually ways that you can dissolve it out of your body. Just go on ChatGPT or YouTube. There's like different people that talk about it, like different doctors that tell you how to dissolve the spike proteins out of your body. But yeah, it's like, you know, yeah, maybe people weren't dropping dead on every corner, but the only people that were actually affected by COVID were people that have any kind of like comorbidities and health. So we can go down all the rabbit holes and evidence points justifying why it was a scam. But the whole point is they completely overblew it. You bought it, not you, but like people bought into the idea, got doped up with all these different synthetic chemicals that you didn't really actually need. If you just got it once, you already have natural immunity. And we freaked out and shut down the world. And we
Yeah.
decimated small businesses. And in the US and in the US, especially in like liberal cities, they were shut down for a long time. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was in Miami at the time. I refused to wear a mask. I would go to Whole Foods and whatnot and like not wear a mask and like, you have to put on the mask. I'm like, no. And I would shop really quickly and go through the self checkout so they didn't make me put on my mask. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I am not participating. I'm not participating. And if enough people did that, then it would have been,
Mm-hmm.
less impactful. But a lot of people just kind of played along. And in the US, it wasn't even all that bad. If you look at like Australia, you couldn't even leave your house and go. You can only
Yeah.
leave your house if you were working out, and you have to prove you were working out. And you can only go within a mile radius of your house. I had a friend in Australia. She called me. She was going on a run. She went on a run so that she can call me and talk to me. And even
Wow.
then, like we're talking on the phone on WhatsApp, and a cop pulls her over, like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're working out?" She's like, "Yes, I'm working out." People were getting arrested for like
Hmm.
posting dissenting opinions in Australia. I had a commenter tell me that they were in Vietnam. They were getting beat with batons for being outside. Oh, but
That's
then
wild.
but then in the US, it's like, oh, George Floyd died. Let's burn down buildings. Oh, that's
Yeah.
considered a peaceful protest. Let's burn down buildings, but you can't go to church. So, bro, it's all
Mm-hmm.
BS. So I digress from that
Yep.
point.
It's all a scam.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's ironic because most of the suffering was created. Most of the suffering wasn't even from the pandemic. It was created through these horrible rules that were instituted by the government. That's where a lot of our suffering came from, mental suffering and literally maybe physically suffering, getting beat in that way. All in all, we got scammed. Moral of the story, was a huge scam, and it should have woke a lot of people up to really what we're living in. And surprisingly, it did. But I think the ones that got the message are the ones that needed to get the message. And yeah, I guess just keep going from there, right? Keep
yeah.
spreading the good word.
And this actually ties into something you said earlier, that I wanted to comment on, but we kind of moved
Yep.
along about, even as like a spiritual being, you also need to have like that warrior mode, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not enough to just sit like a monk in the mountain and just meditate by yourself. Anybody can do that. But the
Mm-hmm.
real essence of like someone who's genuinely spiritually integrated is someone who can be the gardener in the war, but also be the warrior in the garden, as they say.
Yeah,
It's like
that's good.
the saying goes something like, "It's better to be a gardener, or it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war," something like that, right?
I like that. That's good. I never heard that before.
Yeah. But I think both are important, right? It's like I call this the healthy villain mode, right? Where as spiritually aligned as you are, it's like you need like a second gear. You need a gear that you'll show up in the world and decimate the enemy,
Yeah.
where when violence and oppression is visited upon you, you don't just sit back and say, "Oh, like I'm a passive." No. Like there's certain moments in life where you just got to get up and be disciplined. You got to take massive, consistent action, even if it feels
Mm-hmm.
not so good,
Yep.
and you got to put in the work, even though you're not getting much of a return on it, or you got to do things that don't feel like spiritually aligned, where you sit in the sun all day and you sun your butthole or something, right? But you,
Shout out Will Blunderfield.
yeah, right. You actually got to get up and go do the work. Healthy villain mode. Like you need to have that villain gear in you. And I think a lot of times people that are like spiritual bypassers don't apply that.
Mm, that's good. Yeah. that's the essence of Sikhism. They're all warriors. They see themselves as spiritual warriors. And when you get enlightened when you get enlightened, the fourth stage of awakening of enlightenment in Buddhism, it is arhat. And arhat means the conqueror. You become a conqueror. So yeah, I get that. There's a fight. There's a certain fight in being, especially as a man, being spiritual and being conscious. I think that's how I see Jesus. Actually, Jesus is the embodiment of love, the incarnation of love. But love isn't all rainbows and butterflies. He came here not to bring peace on earth, but to bring a sword, right? To bring mix it up a little bit. I think that's the essence of it. Is it's mixing up the dogma a little bit. I think you have to be, especially in the Western world, a warrior. You have to have that spirit of fight and of like carpe diem. You tackle the day. It's not all pacifism, as you said. It's not all like rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah.
Although it is love, but it's not love of how we thought love was, of the Disney movies and things like that. It's love is strength, love is honor, love is sacrifice, love is many things. I'm still figuring it out myself, to be honest with you, but it's not all like gushy and I don't know. It's not like the love that we were conditioned into. Love is something special, and it has to do with the warrior spirit. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You have something
Many things.
to say?
The whole thing about this stuff is like this is where even like the red pill guys get it right. Like I think red pill is good up until a certain point. Red pill
Mm,
turns into like this toxic thing where it's like a chess match with the whole world. And if you're not familiar with this, it's like the whole masculinity men's movement where
yeah.
it's what it is in principle is cool, but also it also turns into this very toxic thing where they're just trying to shame women and they're trying to like get them in these gotcha moments. If you see like some of
Yeah.
these podcasts, like the Fresh and Fit guy,
Mhm.
those two guys, or like whatever, it's like they just bring on these like dumb girls and just like dunk on them, and it's like yeah,
Yeah.
masculine, like red pill bros. It's like you know, but the I think their core message is good, like giving men their power back because in the
Yeah.
face of femininity for the last 100 years, it's like it's women have nothing to complain about for the most part at this point, and they're still like, oh, we need more equality, more equality. It's like you're already like almost superior to men at this point. It's like what equality are you talking about now? And to be able to embody some of those truths of masculinity, to be a protector, to be a provider, to be strong and confident in who you are, to know what you stand for and what beliefs you'd be willing to die for. It's like the vast majority of men just lost touch and lost essence of that. And I think
Yeah.
like when people get into the red pill stuff, it's sort of like they're trying to recapture that essence and maybe you like kind of lean into the toxic part of it for a time, but then the guys who are like genuinely honest will come back and center to really what it is. It's like it's about being that strong confident man, and also when you do have people that are in your circle, that you protect them, you provide for them, you're soft with it's like a softer kind of love, and
Mm.
it's not always abrasive and this like if you say the wrong word or you breathe wrong, that's it, you're out of my life kind of thing. And I think to learning how to calibrate, as you said, it's like you're learning on your journey as you go. I think everyone is. I think even the most ascended spiritual masters are always in the process of learning. I certainly am. It's like I'm always lost and I'm always finding my way and learning how to articulate new things and trying new things out. I kind of live in like this experimentational mindset. And final point I was going to say on that part is like the oh, I lost the point, but yeah, there was a point related to this
It'll come
that
back.
yeah, yeah, well, if it comes back, it comes back.
Well, we were talking about, the imbalanced calibration of men and reclaiming their power, reclaiming their sovereignty, and finding it in people like the Manosphere podcast in the Manosphere. And yeah, I can 100%. I see
Oh,
it. Like I
sorry. Yeah,
see.
here was the point. Sorry, if I
Go
may.
for it.
But
Yep.
the thing you mentioned about Jesus, right? It's like in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, like all that gets quoted from, for the most part, that gets quoted from Jesus is all like the love and oh, like he didn't, he was always pacifistic in a sense and didn't was just always love. He's like feminine, like soft love. But they forget that when the merchants in the temple were doing business inside of the temple, he went into that temple, flipped the tables, and said, what are you guys doing? You're in the house of God. Why are you doing business? This is not a place
Mm-hmm.
of business, right? And so When Jesus was soft, he was soft. But then when he needed to access that masculine, that the part of you that exercises discernment and exercises boundaries,
Yeah,
he unapologetically did that. Right. And I
exactly.
think that's the thing, even in tandem with this conversation, is the part that like a lot of men don't do. It's and a lot of times they're either way too like rigid, or they're
Yeah.
just super soft and let their women and just people in general just walk all over them, and then you turn into a Kamala voter.
That's good. Yeah, man. Balance. You have to find the balance. It seems like it's either all or nothing. It's either black or white, but the truth is always gray. The truth is always in the middle. And I think what we're talking about now is that balanced essence, that balanced spirit. Mm. Yeah. Quoting Jesus a lot. I actually been reading the New Testament. I don't know about you, but I've been reading it recently, getting into it. And I find that too. I find that in Jesus's life, he was the ultimate rebel. He was the ultimate revolutionary in that regard. And he definitely wasn't all just like a hippie. He confronted the Pharisees. He did flip the tables, and he spoke the truth when the truth needed to be spoken. Powerful in that regard. And his whole idea is sacrifice for sure, but it's like we all get crucified in our own way, not literally. Metaphorically, we sacrifice in our own way. I think that's what it means to be a human being, but especially a man. Like we sacrifice ourself somehow for a greater good. I think the whole essence is like sacrificing a little bit of what you want for something greater than what you want. And what you is like your ego, your egotistical, hedonistic wants, right? The powerful message of the cross in Jesus, it brings the symbol of sacrifice and what that really means. And I'm still figuring that out, as we said. But I think love has to do with that. It's like giving up a little bit of yourself so that others can live a little bit better, you know? But not literally getting crucified. It's like metaphorically, we all crucify in that way. Um, yeah. To Jesus, that was nothing. I think that's his huge message too. It's like, this is nothing. Go ahead, nail me up on the cross. This is, who cares? So I think that's like also in the essence of being strong. It's like, this is nothing. What you do, what our work here is in this incarnation, it's nothing. It's like natural. What we're doing now, I feel like this is nothing. It's like whatever. I'm doing this um, without any expectation of reward, any kind of expectation of how this should or shouldn't go. This is nothing to me. So I think when one finds their passion, their purpose, you're just doing it just because, that's freeing. When you can create without any kind of constraints of how it should or shouldn't go, that's true power and that's true freedom. And that's true, I feel, masculinity. That's pure positive masculinity, not toxic. What's the opposite of toxic masculinity? I guess divine
Healthy.
masculinity,
Yeah,
healthy
divine,
masculinity.
divine, divine. Yeah,
Yeah,
divine's the best word.
divine masculinity. That's something that I think people need to find. People are finding masculinity, but it can be a little toxic. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like that term. I think that's definitely a psyop in itself. It's a little imbalanced, we could say. But yeah, divine masculinity is it's like nothing. It's like, yeah, this is just what I do. This is my purpose. And something beautiful in that.
Yeah. Yeah, toxic masculinity, what people do, especially like super liberal and like disconnected people do, and unconscious people do, is they label all masculinity as toxic masculinity, and that's not
Yeah.
true. It's like there's a lot of it that is very much divine. And
Mm,
yeah, I've studied the Bible a lot the last 2 years or so. I grew up in a very interesting dynamic. Like my grandparents on my mom's side were like super Jehovah's Witness,
mm,
and they basically like outcasted my mom from the family. And then on my dad's side, they were like the traditional non-practicing Catholics. And so I never really
okay.
grew up with religion. I've never been atheist before, and my spiritual belief doesn't really have a label at this point. Like I see the truth in every religion. Like in
Yep.
my perspective, I view religion as people trying to point to the same thing with just their own interpretations and their own figures and their
Yep.
own gods to it. And
Yep.
they're all justified. I think they're all true. As you said, it's like it's never black and white, it's gray. And then the problem with a lot of these religions is that we kill each other over these beliefs, which is like
Mm-hmm.
literally not what any of these texts say, other than I guess Muhammad. It says kill the infidels, right? But the even with the Bible, like I studied the Gospels a lot, and I'm actually very grateful that I didn't grow up with that religious background, because I was able to think for myself on it. And a lot of the truths that Jesus are talking about are emphatically true of our reality of like giving of yourself. And as it says in the Bible, it's like the riches aren't in earth, the riches are in heaven, right? It's like that's where the riches are. And what he's saying in like in a practical type of way is that that purposefulness and that connection to your purpose is where all the wealth is in the first place. Whenever people think about wealth, they think about money. But the thing is, wealth has more to do with everything else, and money is really the byproduct. Money is the
Yeah.
side effect of someone who lives in alignment with the wealth of life, someone who is abundant in energy, someone who is abundant in confidence, abundant in clarity, abundant in social relationships that serve each other, that are interconnected and interdependent. Because guess where all the money you make is going to come from? It's going to come from other people. You don't make money, you exchange money.
Mm.
And so the better quality members of your circle that you have, the better business connections, the better even friendships and even romantic relationships, right? The wrong kind of woman as a man, the wrong kind of woman will knock you off your path completely. The right woman will put you even greater in alignment with your purpose, which the Bible talks a lot about that. So it's what is it, better to be alone than with a quarrelsome woman or something like that, right? And so, a lot of those principles are divinely true. Now, I think also sometimes Christians kind of turn it into like a bit of like a cult in a sense, and they quote Revelations, "Oh, the end of times are coming. The end of times."
Yeah.
Like the end of times aren't coming. Like right now, oh my gosh, Donald Trump is the president. End of times are coming. Like even Christians do this, right? Like, oh, look at all the stuff that's going on with Elon Musk and the vandalism. End of times are coming. It's like every time there's like crazy conflicts in the world, end of times, end of times. Like in World War II, they were probably like, holy shit, for real, end of times are coming, you
Yeah.
know?
Uh-huh.
And um the number of the beast, AI number of the beast, it's like you have that a cell phone in your pocket. The number of the beast is already here, It's
Yeah.
like if it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, I think there's a lot of the truths. It's the dogma that kind of like muddies it up a little bit in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. If anything, these are the best of times. These are the times of times. Like, there's no greater point to be alive in human history, for the most part, generalization, obviously, than this time. The amount of opportunity that we have at our disposal is unfathomable to somebody, say, living in, I don't know, 1100 AD as a Russian peasant or something like that. Like the fact that we're doing this right now is wild. We're recording it, people are going to listen to it in the future. It's insane. It's magic. And there's many different layers of the magical reality that we currently live in. So with this consciousness, this, awareness of yourself, this higher consciousness of yourself, you have so much at your disposal, so much opportunity to take the reins and really create the life that you want to create. Like, I think people that think it's end times and that the world is ending don't have enough context to how magical this reality is, how magical this specific lifetime is, this incarnation. Especially if you're an English speaker living in the West. It's like, don't waste this opportunity, man. This is the lifetime of lifetimes. I see it completely opposite. I think this is the beginning of a new world. I think that maybe the old world ended in some time in the 20th century, maybe even the 19th, some kind of transitory period we're moving toward. And it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world that we're moving toward. Truly, especially with the advent of technology and AI, we have, I don't want to get too much into it, I'm getting a little emotional, but we have so much power to be able to live the life that we want to live. And there's no excuses. There's really no excuses anymore. That's how I feel, at least. We all have different situations and different opportunities, different circumstances in life, but for the most part, in a general way, if you're listening to this, you have a lot of opportunity, a lot more than anyone else has ever had in the history of humanity. That's all I
Yeah,
got to say.
I agree. Yeah, like being born in the US as an English speaker, you basically hit the reincarnation lottery in a sense, right? Of
Very
all
good
the
karma.
yeah, of all the places you can be born, imagine being born in like the slums of India or something, where it's like they literally have no food and they have no bathrooms and they have no clean water. And it's like, it's a struggle to survive. Like, it's actually a struggle to survive in some of those places.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of India, of course, but it's like certain spots. And
Mm-hmm.
in the US, and there, of course, there's unfortunate circumstances here, but it's really funny how in the most advanced, richest country in the world, we also have the biggest mental health crisis. We also have the
Right.
most, depression and anxiety, and people take pills. And you're so fortunate and you're so rich that you can pay another human to sit there and be like a soundboard that you can complain to about like how unfortunate and unfair your life is. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the typical like that whole phrase of first world problems. It's like we suffer
Yeah.
from first world problems. Our problem is, oh, I'm not as rich or beautiful or as tall or as handsome or whatever as or as cool as this celebrity or this person in my college or this person at my job. I'm not driving the Bugatti like some of these guys or the Lamborghinis or the Aston Martins of some of these guys. And then we feel horrible about that. It's like,
Mm.
do you have any idea your ancestors, even 150 years ago, would be absolutely astounded at your lack of gratitude for the abundance that you have?
Yeah.
Right? Like even 150 years ago, it's like there was zero electricity, no phones. You couldn't email some stranger that you found on YouTube to come on a podcast with you. Right
Yeah.
now, we're here
Exactly.
having this like soul calling, soul aligning conversation. Like this is, I find this so enjoyable, and the fact
Yeah.
that we have that luxury to be able to do this, like your ancestors would absolutely like be shaking their head at anybody that is looking at their reality as like, oh my gosh, it's so unfair. I live such a shitty life now, obviously, it's like that brings up guilt and shame. Our point with this is to really shift your perspective to understand that you live in the best time ever. There's so much opportunity. There genuinely is. It's like if you look at even the power of social media, as much as it is a tool for distraction, it's one of the best tools for abundance and opportunity, right? It's like how many people are blowing up on social media or starting businesses on social media to where they don't have to go work like a 9 to 5 job that they hate, where that's draining them of their energy, that is draining them of their life force, all because they posted little cute videos going, doo, 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 like
Yeah.
how many, like there is just so much opportunity, and you
Yeah.
are 100% correct. There is no excuse. And
Mm-mm.
once you kind of evolve into that perspective, it's like the world turns into a playground rather than a prison.
Mm.
And a lot of people are kind of stuck in that prison cell mindset. And you want to know what like unlocks that door out of that prison? Your mind, your spiritual connection. It's funny how
Mm.
this whole conversation comes full circle. It's like that's what turns it into a playground.
Yes, man. Amen. Yeah. And then you can play. You can truly start to play, not in a childish way, not naivety, but in a childlike way. It's a big difference between childish and childlike, right? It's
It's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah.
right. And yeah, unless ye become like children, then you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. It's all perspective, man. That's why I call this the conscious perspective, because I really do feel like the whole spiritual path, if you want to call it that, is just about changing your mindset, changing how you see everything, yourself, your life, people in your life, the things that happen to you. You can change it to see that it all happened for you. Everything, really, I think that's just kind of like another point, is you can see that everything in one way or the other is happening for you. That is a cliche. I'm pretty sure we've all heard that before, but it's actually the truth. That's a perspective that you take that really gives empowerment, that all of this in one way or the other is happening for your betterment and for your growth. And that is a complete 180 perspective shift. And that leads to truly, yes, being able to play with the things that aren't really so serious. You took them serious before, they're really not so serious. They're really not so serious, man. Or maybe you just start to learn what to take serious in some regard. Might be a different way to put it. But yeah, man, it's all about just negating suffering in some way and really enjoying one's life. Contrary to popular belief, this life is meant to be lived and enjoyed. God wants you to enjoy this life. You don't even have to say God. I like saying God, but God truly does want you to live an abundant and free life and actually take a hold of your purpose, take a hold of who you're supposed to be here, and just go with that, man. Right? It's kind of like you You kind of just go with the flow of what you know about yourself and just roll with it. Roll with the punches. Roll with that dance, and it becomes quite natural. I find, right? It's like quite natural once you know how to tap in one way or the other. I know we didn't get into practices, which is good. I actually like that. But once you know how to tap in your own way in your own practice, it's quite natural. It's like once you know, um, it's just like there's no other way to live. I guess is a better way to put it. There's really no other way to live than to live aligned, right? Aligned with the greater spirit, the greater purpose, aligned with God. You know, um, but it's all perspective. Living with God is all perspective. And I think all, as you hinted at this, all of the sages, saints, religions, and belief systems are trying to tell us that in one way or the other. Maybe different languages, different cultures, different parts of the world are illuminating it differently, but it's all the same idea. It's give give up a little bit of yourself and give it to God. Give it to a sort of higher purpose than yourself. And that will lead the way, and that changes everything. Um, but I don't have anything else to say. That might be a good note to wrap this up at. As we said, we went full circle, but do you have any last words that you want to get off your chest before we wrap this up?
Yeah. My final thought here is, yeah, beautifully said, all of that. Man is most comical. One of my favorite quotes is, "Man is most comical when he takes himself too seriously."
That's
And
good. I never heard
yeah,
that.
yeah. And as you become a more conscious being, it's like you start to embody both intention, like being a very intentional and intense person when you need to be, and also you can like chill the fuck out and relax and be
Mm.
detached. And then
Mm-hmm.
you'll really remember the fact that, yeah, it is true. It's like everything that is happening to you is serving you to some degree if you know how to look at it. Even in
Yep.
the worst of circumstances, that is happening for you to embody more of your soul, to remember who you are. These are all things that our souls came here knowing how to do. It's just we got psyoped. The biggest psyop, more influential and subconscious and covert than COVID is disconnection, is
Yeah.
unconsciousness, is a lack of connection to God,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
whatever God. It's not like just the Christian God, is any kind of higher purpose, higher consciousness,
Yeah.
and that's why the Bible says it's like children, the children of God are the ones that's like if you cause them to stumble, you'll have a millstone thrown around your head and drowned in a lake or whatever that like Bible, it's Matthew something, and it's like, yeah, that the children of God, like what he's saying there in like in a practical, more modern term is like, as a child, it's not being childish. How you said, I love the way you said it too. It's like it's not being childish, it's being childlike.
Yeah.
You came equipped with this natural curiosity for life, and it
Mm.
comes natural, it comes organically, but you're psyoped out of that over time because of all these societal expectations. And so I
Mm-hmm.
love the fact that even this podcast is called Conscious Perspective, because when you embody that conscious perspective, you'll just know these things to be true. There's not this
Yep.
second
Exactly.
guessing work around it, there's no self-doubt. And
Yep.
from that place of a connection and alignment to that higher source, it's like you'll know what your purpose is, and you'll be able to confidently move forward, and whatever
Yeah.
comes your way, whatever twists and turns arise along the path, you won't freak out about them. You won't be frustrated with yourself. You won't talk negatively to yourself. You'll say, as it is, and you'll move forward with more power. And what you'll find is you'll manifest, quote unquote, the corresponding reality of power, of influence. And that's really like the big message I like sharing with people. And I'm glad that yours is in alignment with that as well.
Amen. Amen, brother. Yes. It's quite effortless. Quite effortless. Natural, apparent, this wavelength, this way of seeing. It's our birthright, truly. What you see through the psyop, you're like, oh, this is it. Ah, okay.
It's
Of course.
refreshing. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
It's like when
Yep.
you see someone else that like speaks truth, it's just like it feels like it's massaging your soul, right?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of reality you can experience. Effortless existence. I love the word effortless.
Yes. Well, on that note, thank you for massaging our souls today, Jose.
Thanks
I think
for
this was an awesome talk,
thanks for giving me the space to do that, man.
for sure. Yeah, man. Well, keep doing your thing. I wish you all the best, and yeah, that's it, man. Keep up the good work. You're really
Thanks.
you're a real one. I can tell you have this understood within yourself. real recognize real type of thing.
I
So
appreciate
yeah,
that, man. Likewise, you as well.
thank you, man. And that's it. I don't have anything else to say. Peace and love to you, and peace and love to anybody that listened this long. Goodbye, everybody.